soon as I come out, then the damn sun come out. Burning up in here. As soon as I come out the door, then the damn sun comes out. So I got to make this a somewhat safe spot over here. I don't have any. All right. Let's see what I got here. All right. That's another problem I'm going to have. All right. Just stay here and hopefully the sun turns again. All right, this is Sports for Real with Coach Hall. Just got through watching the demolition of UConn. Their women just blew out South Carolina. That's the second time they have blown out South Carolina this year, and this time it came for the national championship. South Carolina was rolling up until that matchup when they played UConn in the regular season, and they had a couple shaky outcomes, and you kind of wondered what was going on with South Carolina. I think it had something to do internally with that team, but come to find out, one of their best players, they tore an ACL and went down, and because of that, took them a while to get their legs back together, but they got it together, and they made a great run to make it to the championship game, where they ran across UConn again, and UConn hitting on all cylinders at this point. Looking like some of the old UConn teams that won championships before, and it was going to take a perfect effort by the Gamecocks to get by UConn. But you can't help but wonder if if South Carolina hadn't lost that best player, how much better would they have been throughout the whole season? And secondly, if USC's Juju Watkins, if she doesn't go down, what will become of that particular regional final when it took everything UConn had to get by them without Juju. So with Juju, I think UConn would have probably got knocked off. And but sometimes in sports, it's just your time. And everybody's been talking about this Paige Buckers and Paige Beckers, and she's a good player. And she finally got her championship, so that storyline goes away. But sometimes things have to go your way. And just like when Paige got hurt, it changed their fortune, and now she's bounced back and she got her championship. So the question is, will Juju Watkins be able to bounce back like Paige Beckers? She's a good player. She's probably going to bounce back, and that would be all in good. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds moving forward. Now, the men, they played the Final Four last night, and the championship game is set. The first game, Florida was getting dogged by Auburn, and they had a 8-9 point lead at halftime, did Auburn, and they came out in the second half and they stopped doing the things that got them their lead in the first place, mainly pounding the ball down low to the big fella, Broome. Broome didn't get that many opportunities in the second half, and I think that ultimately was the difference in that game. But that game, to me, turned regardless if Broome was able to get off or not. It kind of speaks to the way that basketball is played today. For instance, they all think fast breaks mean automatic chances at threes instead of just taking it to the hole to get the easy two. Well, Auburn had a fast break, and they getting back into the game. They were down by a couple of points, and they had a clear lane on the break to the basket. But the guy, instead of taking the layup, he kicks it out to the three. The man, what's his name, Baker, I can't remember his last name, the Dominican guy, he catches the ball, and he pump fakes at the same time he's in the air, and he gets called in the air, and he gets calls for traveling. So they missed the opportunity to get the easy two, and then get the turnover on the kick out three. And that's just the way that basketball is played now. Instead of getting the obvious 2 points to cut the lead, they're trying to get the big three because it's fashionable to shoot threes, and it ended up costing them a whole possession. And in the end, I think that was the big thing that killed Auburn last night. So Florida, still on their magic carpet ride. That's like the third game in a row. They had to come from way behind to win when things absolutely went in their favor. So the question with the Gators I have, can they continue to come back and pull these miracles out of the hat? And how long can you depend on such things before your luck kind of runs out? But more on that in a minute. The other game, which I told you guys in the beginning, I didn't really care about the Florida-Auburn game because the best team was going to be who won between Duke and Houston. Today is my birthday. Well, happy birthday, Neville. I told you guys for months now, or for weeks, at least a couple weeks before the tournament started, that Duke was by far the best team that I've seen this year. And it was going to take a Herculean effort or a twist of fate where somebody got hurt that was going to knock Duke off that championship throne. Well, I kind of didn't back off that, but I added an addendum to that. I said to you that Houston, the story that they have, they've been to the Final Four 6 other times. This is number 7. And every time they get there, something happened to them. A couple times they weren't the best team. They got beat by UCLA. And then they got upset. Take that back. They got beat by best teams UCLA, and they also got beat by Baylor, and they got beat by Georgetown. But that 83 team, there's no question that they were the best team in basketball, and it took a team of destiny. And just like Florida, where everything just had to go their way at the time when they had to have it go their way, in the way that they had to have it to happen, it went their way, and that's how they ended up winning the championship. But Houston, and I hate to bring this up, but basketball in the pros, you got best 4 out of 7. If it was a series, 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 7, there's no question that Houston would have won that championship, losing on that one fluke game. But I said, if anybody's going to beat Duke, it was going to be Houston, because fate might have finally switched around to where Houston was destined to win a championship. And it comes down a lot of times in sports to want to. And Houston, they were getting outplayed by Duke at their own game. That game was over. So all of a sudden, Duke, they just went cold. And Houston kept making plays and chipping away. And next thing you know, they came back and they took the lead. Now, I will say that over-the-back foul on Cooper Flag, that was a ticky-tack foul. That's one that they should have held on to. But the guy came down and hit 2 free throws, and that was huge toward the outcome of the game. And in the end there, you have to go through flag, but I think they called the wrong play. I think you should have gave it the flag and kicked it out to the guy from Wisconsin. I think his name was Knutson or something like that. I like him, and I think he was better suited to take the final shot over flag because everybody in the world knew that flag was going to get the ball. Now, having said that, flag, fade away. You got a good look at the basket. You just didn't have enough on it, and that was the difference in that game. So now you got Houston, who I think, like I said, if anybody was going to beat Duke, it was going to be Houston, and whoever won that last game was going to be the one cutting down the nets. So I think Houston is going to knock off Florida, but the question is, what about Florida's magic carpet ride? Now, unlike NC State in '83, Florida's been a top team all year long, so it's not like they had to have everything go their way to get to the point of where they are. But at the same time, they got a couple gifts here and there to allow them to be in position to get to this point. And I think they've been good enough to take advantage of that, but you can't keep falling behind and expect that by some miracle that fate is going to bring you back. I just don't see that happening. And Florida is going to have to stick with Houston or be in contact if they expect to win this game. But I think in the end, it's going to be Houston to cut down the net, primarily because of want to. Now, speaking of want to, I tell you guys that I got me a little baseball team, and we had just had a situation where we had to cancel a game due to new regulations, and I couldn't play one team, and it left a hole in the schedule. So I looked around and found a couple of other holes that people had, and I called up a team that I knew I could compete with. So I'm trying to get some get back because I lost a game earlier that I thought I shouldn't have lost. Well, we've got the game, and we went to their place to play them. Turns out it's senior night. Okay, no problem. Let's ruin their senior night. But the game kind of went like I thought it would go. But I didn't realize this till after the fact that we ended up losing the same way we lost the first game we played against them and several other games we played in the same kind of way. It comes down to desire. A couple of times, like 3 innings in a row, we got the bases loaded with 1 out, and all we can get out of those 3 innings was about 2 runs. When the other team, when they got the bases loaded, they cleaned the bases up. If I come to the plate and I got a pitcher who I think is subpar, I'm not necessarily thinking home run. I'm thinking at the very least I'm going to hit a line drive down the line and get me a triple and drive in 3 runs. But no. Not my players. It seems like when it's time to win, they tighten up. And 3 straight innings, we got the bases loaded with 1 out, and they ended up striking outs 2 and 3 out. So when you look at what happened in the end, we ended up stranding about 15 runners on base. They ended up losing the game in 6 innings by 10 runs. And I realized later that that other team, when they had an opportunity to kill us and get a hit with the bases loaded, they did that. And we couldn't do it. And we haven't done it all year. And it's been symbolic of the way that our season has gone this year. And it all comes down to heart and determination. And my team, we just don't have it. And you can drill and teach them the fundamentals and the basics of the game and the rules and everything else. But when the game is on the line, when the fight is on the line, or you got to catch the ball to take it to overtime, you got to have that drive in you to want to do that. But if all you want to do is put a uniform on and be clean and everything else and look the part and not play the part, you're never going to win. And I got a lot of players who just look the part, look real good. But when it comes time to play, that's something they hadn't thought about. So that just opened my eyes to desire and to see the way that the Houston Cougars fought back last night against Duke. And in a sense, everything that happened to Duke last night was necessary for Houston to come back and win that game. But it all started with desire. And as the game got more toward the end, that desire got stronger and stronger. And I wish I can bottle some of that up and give it to my team, but it has to be in you. And Houston, they definitely had it. My team, they just does not have it. Now, when you apply that to the women's side, I think UConn was the same way. They all rallied around Paige Beckers to the point where they want to will the situation where she was going to get her championship. And the way they played and the way they went after those loose balls and the way they tried to block shots and rebounding, UConn was ferocious all NCAA tournament long. And I think that is the difference as to why they're the champions and not South Carolina repeating again. It's all about will and want to. So it's not good enough for you just to be good at the sport. When the game is on the line, you got to be able to take what you want, and that's what UConn did. That's what Houston did, and that's what my opponent did the other night when they had the bases loaded and hit a single and wound up cleaning the bases up because we just didn't have it. All right, now the other thing I want to talk about, if you see that thumbnail I have, that is a thumbnail from the incident that took place last Wednesday at a track meet in Texas. Well, my first reports of that is that a player an athlete just took out a knife and stabbed another guy in the chest, and for no reason was given, and the fact that no reason was given, they arrested the guy and gave him first-degree murder. So my thumbnail was from that original report that I got. But regardless of the information that has changed, it's still a tragic incident, and I will say rest in peace to the guy that was killed. And sports is about gambling. I don't think it would have anything to do with it. Will's got a lot to do with it. When the games begin, you might have an understanding about what kind of money is on the line and how much money you might be making. But once the games begin, all that goes out the window, and it comes down to who wants it the most. But back to the story. I said that, this guy here he made a dumb decision, and it looks like that he's going to have a tough life because he doesn't look strong enough to be able to handle any kind of time, especially at 18 years old. They're going to give him life sentence, and if not life sentence, he might end up in the chair. But since then, I got a report. I listened to this guy, Willie D, and I figured he'd get this story out. I've been talking about it for the last couple of days. I just hadn't done a full issue on it. But he says that he's got more information to the fact that it was more to it than the basic report that was put out. Apparently, the guy Austin Metcalf, he has a twin brother, and these guys were pretty much bullies. Now, the situation, for what I understand, is, if you go to these track meets, a lot of these teams, they have tents up because it'd be hot at these meets. You'd be out in the middle of the field. There's really no shade, so you have to get the shade where you can get it. And a lot of schools put up these tents in the bleachers. Well, this guy, Carmelo Anthony, and no, there's no relation to the Hall of Fame basketball Carmelo Anthony, and that's one of the reasons that attracted me to the story, because it's the same week that Carmelo Anthony, the basketball player, found out that he was going to the Hall of Fame. Well, Carmelo, the basketball player, is spelled with a C, and this young fellow who's in trouble, his name is Carmelo Anthony also, but he spells his name with a K. But the Carmelo was under the tent of a rival school. Now, this took place in a place called Frisco, Texas. And if you guys are Cowboy fans out there, that's where the Cowboys have their facilities. And it's the Frisco Independent School District, and they were having this track meet. And there are several high schools in Frisco. The Carmelo kid went to Centennial, and the guy that was killed, Austin, he went to Centennial. No, not Centennial, but Memorial. And evidently, these guys knew each other. Well, the story that's coming out now is that Austin and his twin brothers, they are bullies. And when they came back in the bleachers, they seen Carmelo there, and they tried to jump him and throw him out of the tent. Well, it's not unusual for somebody that is not on your team to be somewhere close to your tent. If not under the tent, they might be sitting right next to the tent. In other words, these track athletes mingle all the time, so it's no big deal. Now, you might get some guy who thinks he's a hot shot and try to throw you out like he owns the place, but of course he does not. So it's my understanding now that the two brothers may have tried to bully Carmelo and throw him out from under the tent. So the question is, why did Carmelo have a knife? Why did you bring a knife to a track meet when it's not supposed to be any weapons? Students aren't supposed to carry those kind of weapons, especially at events. Why was he having a knife? Which leads to believe leads to the question, what was the relationship between these guys before this track meet? Again, Frisco is not a real big place. It's a heavily populated area, but you know that a lot of times these athletes know each other from other schools, from other events. And the thing is, he's probably carrying a knife because maybe he's fearing something. Maybe he's got something to do with these Metcalf brothers. And just so happened that it came to a head where these guys tried to jump on him, and it could very well be possible that Carmelo was defending himself. But the question is, again, why do you have that knife? That's the only thing that's going to throw that self-defense thing off, because you should not have that knife at that event. So when you dig into Carmelo's background, it's my understanding that this kid has scholarship offers and he has a 4.0 grade average. So the story that was put out there does not match the background of who this kid is. So it's going to come down to how much defense can you muster to fight off these charges. Because if he can't, and it comes down to a public defender, then you can kiss Mr. Anthony goodbye, because we're still talking about Texas, and we're still talking about America, and the odds always more than likely going to work against him. But in response to that, both sides here, the Metcalfs and the Anthonys, have put up GoFundMes, and both of them have drummed up some sizable amounts. Of course, the Metcalf kid, Last I heard, he's got a much bigger deposit rate than what Anthony has, because again, Anthony has been painted as the villain. But was he really the villain? According to victim statements, these guys were the known bullies, and it seems that they may have instigated the event. So it's going to be a touchy situation moving forward. But the bottom line is, one kid's dead, one kid's in jail, and there's not going to be any winners on any side. But I would like to know what the truth is, and it won't be long before it comes all the way out. And as far as the first-degree murder charge, more than likely he's going to get that reduced. If not second degree, it might come all the way down to manslaughter. He's not going to get first degree or something like that. I would say that he's probably going to get an additional charge for having that weapon at that event. And that's the loose end that may end up costing Anthony a lot more time than what meets the eye. So time will tell how that shakes out. But in the meanwhile, back to the positives. You're going to have a hell of a basketball championship game tomorrow night between Florida and Houston. And I think, again, it's going to come down to who wants it more. And Florida, they're going to have to stay in contact. They're not going to be able to expect to keep coming back against these good teams. But the saying always goes with me. You can upset your way all the way to the top. And the thing is, either you're going to continue upsetting, or it's going to strike 12 and you're going to get blown out. And that happens a lot. So will the Florida Gators have an opportunity to knock off Houston is the question. We know Houston has a heart. They hadn't been to the championship game in many, many years. And they got an opportunity here. And I think that by getting by Duke, that was a major hurdle. Once they got by Duke, I thought that was going to be the key, because whoever won that game to me was going to be a national championship. But I did lose both games, so I come into the Final Four 51-9. Now I sit at 51-11. Still a good number for the tournament as a whole, but I expect my tournament numbers are going to continue to go up in the future, simply because of this NIL thing that they have going on. It's robbing the smaller schools of opportunities to build programs to compete in the NCAA tournaments. And you can't compete like that if the big schools are going to be poaching your players after 1 or 2 years. So get used to the idea of the number one seeds all showing up to the Final Four. This was only the second time, but expect that to happen much, much more often in the future. Now, speaking of NIL, a guy made a great point on the radio. We know that the NIL is pretty much unregulated to a lot of extent. And he said something on the radio that I didn't think about. He's saying that the players are maximizing the NIL situation to the max, meaning that they are using people to get more money than what they're supposed to get. For instance, there's no limit now to transfer. So if I transfer after my season and I started with a new program in January, and then I get an NIL deal with that school, and then I wait till the spring practice is over with and transfer again. So now I'm getting NIL money for a team that I never even stepped foot in the game with, and I'm just milking the system. And the school that I've just jilted can't do anything about it. And that's a very good point, because you also have players, know they might be a little nicked up. They decide to skip their senior year and say, I'm going to take this NIL money and come back the next year. Well, they don't perform at all, but yet they got this NIL money. And then you're going to come back again next year to do the same thing. But who's to say once you got healthy that you won't go and transfer again to some other school? And, I never thought about that, but this guy had a great point, that these guys, they got all the advantages, and it's going to keep being that way until legislation steps in to put a stop to it, or at least put some kind of rules together. But I think what the guy was also saying is that you should put these guys on contract. If you don't perform X amount of time, or you don't do this or you do that, or if you did this and did that, this is what you're going to get. And if they did that, that would put a lot of a stop to a lot of all the garbage that's taking place with this NIL. And I think what you're going to see in the future is some kind of contract system take the place of what you see now. But as it is right now, the players hold all the cards. Now, for years, the NCAA held all the cards. They made billions off athletes, and they didn't pay them anything. And then when they were forced to pay, they didn't like it. They went to the government to try to stop it then. Well, the government keeps shooting them down at every turn. And right now, the athletes are going to take advantage of every single thing that they can. But I do think that the NCAA needs to get rid of all these long-term seniors. They got some seniors out there 6-7 years, and I don't understand how you can be eligible after such long periods of time. I know after the COVID season, they gave everybody an additional year, and I can see 6 years, but 7 and 8, I don't know how they come up with that. And with the fact that you're getting paid and you know you've been hurt all this time, you know the likelihood of you going pro after being in college for so long is remote. So why not take advantage of NIL while you can? And I think that's just what these players are doing. And because of that, it's putting a black eye on the whole system. So the NCAA, I think, is a dying institution. It's going to come down to Congress to make some kind of decision as to what takes place in the future moving forward concerning NIL. But those guys from Duke, Houston, Florida, and Auburn, they deserve every penny, because when the game is on the line, they come into play. They ain't thought nothing about money, and they're not trying to cut any corners. They're trying to win, just like the UConn women did today when they destroyed South Carolina. So here's looking forward to a great championship game tomorrow. I asked the question, do you think Florida can knock off Houston? Most of you are saying no. I agree, but I told you ahead of time, the only team I thought that can beat Duke at this point was going to be Houston, and whoever won that game was going to win the national championship, and that's what I expect to see tomorrow. Florida hang around a while, but they're going to fall behind, and when it comes to making that big shot to try to get back in the game, they're just not going to be there. And the cruel twist of basketball is, if you're shooting threes all night, you can miss, and you get blown out, and then with 10 seconds left, you throw up the last shot, and guess what? He goes in. That's the funny thing about basketball. But anyway, when I get some more information on that Carmelo Anthony situation out in Frisco, Texas, and with the murder of Austin Metcalf, be sure to fill you in. But that's going to be a story that's going to drag out for a while. It's tragic, no matter how you look at it. Kids should have never had the knife at the game, and if those guys are bullying, you never know what kind of response you're going to get from somebody if you jump on them. You kind of get what you ask for if you're the one that's being the aggressor. So keep that in mind if you think about going to jump on somebody. So that's just my thoughts on that. So until next time, I'm out here burning up because I got no shade anywhere. I'll see you guys in the morning with a fresh take on things, and do a little preview about the championship game that's going to unfold tomorrow night. I had a doubleheader lined up tomorrow, which is kind of different for high school baseball. Normally you don't do doubleheaders, but I got a game at 3, and I got another one scheduled at 6. But I think the game at 6, the team that I'm supposed to play, I'm not sure they're going to be able to make it, and that would be a shame, because every time I try to put together something unique, something happens that it falls apart. But I'm hoping that things will stay together, and that would be a great ending to at this point, a very difficult season. So I catch you guys in the morning. Until then, have a great night. I'm out.